Hey guys, welcome to Tuesday, May 10th pre-recorded Zoom. Pretty much gonna just follow up off of our discussion from Friday. Based on just immediately what I can recall, I believe we were around somewhere around here, the 6th. Yeah, we're somewhere around here. And the first thing that we had pretty much pointed out was that we had wanted the initial push to take out liquidity, not the second push, because with the second push making that new quote-unquote structural range, even though it's not a substantial new high just yet, because it came after the reaction, that is considered right a bullish showing its hand, which gives you that bullish inclination, bullish order flow, and the overall bullish sense that this is going to continue, right? Unfortunately, immediately after the reaction we saw during our Zoom, which is around here, we created, actually, let me just clear this stuff up for you guys. I'll take that off. Okay, so the initial reaction that we had pretty much wanted up here has now been here. So because this has now been taken fully, right, we get a reaction and then we get another internal new high, right? Notice these are not substantial new highs. We have been very, very bullish and we are not seeing these substantial new highs, which is a bit worrying, right? But at the same time, right, yes, these are not substantial new highs, but although we did not reach our premium, our discount that we wanted, right, there is still some type of order flow in play. There is still, right, these higher lows in play internally, right? So this makes me think that, right, the only natural direction that we can continue with is higher, meaning that this would be our immediate target. After what happens here, it's very, very hard to judge in my opinion. But I can pretty much be very, very confident that this is going to hit. Why? Because there has been a mitigation here with this candle and this move and the reaction, right? I promise you internally there is some sort of break of structure there, right? Or some sort of dip there. Let me actually get that correct for you guys. There is a dip here, right? Here. Right, where the momentum shifted, the character shifted, you can see that there is a clear reaction. There is a clear preliminary structure break. There is a reaction there, but it did not take out the full structural range, right? It only gave us a liquidity grab. And because that is now continuing higher, it looks like this order flow will be disrupted here from the H1 candle. And this should be pretty much giving us back into 104.2, and it's just a bit confusing now, or a bit just iffy now, because it doesn't look like this wants to stop. I mean, we really don't have anything to look back at, right? I don't necessarily want to reference any type of bullish POI or any type of bearish POI, because for example, we did that here, right, with the monthly inefficiency. There is a quote unquote reaction here, right, and that has failed, right, meaning this could be, right, a sign of just overall order flow disruption, or we could be seeing the 50%. I'm pretty much open to both perspectives. Why? Because there is a massive amount of liquidity that has been taken, and once that liquidity has been taken, right, who's to say we don't kind of reverse there? And that's pretty much what I would be looking at for the next couple of weeks, whether we can get some sort of major minor intraday transition after this liquidity has been taken, right? Because obviously internally we are still bullish, right? So if we are to see some type of reaction, then it's a very, very telltale sign that we're going to see a pretty big move coming ahead, right? But keep in mind, this is a monthly POI. Keep in mind, our swing is still very, very bullish. So for a move of that caliber to occur, you need to give it time. You need to let that formulate. So as of now, it really just looks like continuations is just the pretty much the telltale sign that, or pretty much is the only thing that we're going to see over the next couple of weeks, because it has kind of been the only thing that we've seen over the past couple of months. It's been these continuations that we repeatedly have covered since about May of last year, which has pretty much been a year almost. AUDUSD, this one I will say I admit to this mistake. Something I looked at this morning that I should have acknowledged on the Zoom was this. This is something I should have very, very clearly acknowledged, right? Because this is an internal, right, liquidity grab, and this had happened pretty much the morning before or the morning of the Zoom. And I didn't acknowledge that, and because I didn't acknowledge that, I expected a higher POI, and inevitably it just did not occur. So this would be a cool little lesson for you guys, right? Acknowledging the reactions, right? This is where solidified points, this is where liquidity grabs come into play, and if you can interpret those, right, and apply them into structural ranges and just note them as reactions, then you can see some very, very high probable scenarios, or very, very high probable continuations for that matter. But yeah, unfortunately, I will say that I did not see this on Friday. I did not acknowledge this on Friday, but this is very, very good for you guys to see. You guys can go back to that Zoom. You guys can see that I pretty much disregarded this, but if I had regarded this, the entire, bias changes. It's a lot harder to then justify here, because then if this occurs, this reaction, we come back up here, right? We need a bearish transition here. If we don't get any type of bearish transition, this is going to keep going. But yeah, just something for you guys to note. EURUSD hasn't done anything. We have noted this to be within no man's land, and it does seem like it is still within that no man's land. And the reason why I say no man's land is, excuse me, high into low, into retracement. This obviously takes our structure here, but preliminary would be here. Once this is taken, that solidifies the high, right? Obviously internally there's high, low, high, low, high, low. That is then broken. This solidifies, right, this low, and that is now unwillingness, right? Which is why I didn't necessarily want to be too bearish here, because as you can see, we actually retested it again and again. So as you can see, that's why I said this would have been not necessarily a low probability, but it would not be as high of a probability as a move with a clear structural range, a clear substantial new lower high, right? And that's why we were talking about this on Friday, where yes, there was a scenario, but as you can see, right, the security just wasn't there. The order flow just wasn't there. Why? Because of the uncertainty of direction, which is technically what no man's land is. So that pretty much also covers the fact that with no man's land, does not necessarily mean you cannot trade it, but if you acknowledge that you are in no man's land and you are taking a scenario based on whatever model you're looking for, right, you just have to keep that in the back of your mind, because if it does end up failing, right, then you could argue that that is the reason why your scenario was not favorable, right? And that's how you pretty much gather your lessons over time. But nothing much to say here. It just doesn't seem like this is going to, it doesn't seem like this is going to, or it's not giving us any clear direction, as you can see, right? Let's say here we are technically within a potential candle of interest, but I would not want to trade this. I'd just like to see what the reaction would be, especially with the XY still looking like it's going to keep going up. Right, this really does look like it is still gonna keep going down. And the reason why I also could argue that continuation to the downside, right? For example, high into low, into retracement, right? This solidifies the high. So technically, from a bearish stance, your invalidation for a bearish move is there. Right, I would not argue that to be here just yet, unless we take out liquidity, right? Then I would argue the immediate high, whether it be this as a potential invalidation to the bias. But as of now, right, our invalidation was not met, but even though you can see that there is technically relatively equal highs here, right? It could be something that if you get, let's say, right, you take out liquidity, right, and then you see some sort of transition, that's when you aim for targets. And then once you achieve that target, if you were to achieve the target, you would get the showing of its hand, and then that's when you see the real move. But like we've said before, based on the information that we have now, it's a lot harder to, or it's not necessarily quote unquote wise or favorable to try to make this type of assumption because of where the original direction is. But you can always have a hunch, and that's okay. As long as you're playing to your models, you're playing to your continuations, right? And you're justifying your positions. But with that being said, I will see you guys on Friday.